Quick content note before we start. This episode covers the murder of elderly and vulnerable patients by a medical professional. We'll handle it with care throughout.
Cindy, do you trust your doctor?
That's a question I'm asking you, Dylan.
Yes? I mean, that's the whole point of a doctor. You have to trust them. They have access to your body, your medical history, your home in some cases.
What if I told you that for over 20 years, in a quiet town in Greater Manchester, England, a family doctor was visiting his elderly patients at home, sitting with them, chatting with them, making them feel cared for, and then injecting them with lethal doses of morphine while they sat in their armchairs?
I would say that is one of the most disturbing things you have ever said to me on this podcast.
And what if I told you he did it at least 218 times, possibly 250, over 23 years, and nobody stopped him until he forged a will so badly that a solicitor got suspicious?
250 people.
At least. Welcome to HILLarious Media. I'm Cindy.
I'm Dylan. Episode 21. Harold Shipman, the most prolific serial killer in British history, and quite possibly the most trusted.
Harold Frederick Shipman, born January 14, 1946 in Nottingham, England. Working-class background. His mother, Vera, was the defining relationship of his early life. She was diagnosed with lung cancer when Harold was a teenager and died in 1963 when he was 17.
How did she die?
At home, in pain, with a doctor visiting regularly to administer morphine injections for the pain. Harold watched this. He watched a doctor come to the house, inject his mother, and give her relief from suffering, and then she died.
So, from a very young age, he associated morphine injection with end of life, with the doctor's role in that moment.
Exactly. Whether that childhood experience directly shaped what he later did is something forensic psychologists have spent decades on. There's no clean answer, but it's a thread that runs through the entire case.
He became a doctor.
He studied medicine at Leeds School of Medicine, qualified in 1970, and became a GP, a general practitioner, a family doctor, first in Tottermond, West Yorkshire, and then in Hyde, Greater Manchester, where he would spend the bulk of his career. He was, by all accounts, a well-liked doctor. Patients loved him. He was warm, attentive, the kind of GP who remembered details about your family, who made time for you.
Which made him the perfect predator.
His victims trusted him absolutely. Many of them were elderly women living alone, exactly the kind of patients who valued a doctor who took time with them, who visited at home, who seemed genuinely to care.
When did it start?
His first known victim was Eva Lyons in 1975. She was 70 years old and terminally ill with cancer. Shipman injected her with a lethal dose of morphine during a home visit. She died. It was recorded as natural causes. And then he did it again. And again. For 23 years.
23 years before anyone stopped him.
23 years. And it's worth understanding why, because it's not simply that everyone was foolish or negligent. There are systemic reasons this went undetected for so long, and they matter.
Walk me through how it worked, the mechanics.
Shipman would visit patients at home, routine for a GP, elderly patients especially. He would administer an injection of diamorphine, medical-grade morphine. The patient would die quickly and peacefully, usually in their chair. Shipman would then falsify their medical records to indicate they had been in poor health or declining, making the death appear natural and expected.
And death certificates?
He signed many of them himself. In the UK at that time, a patient's own GP could sign the death certificate. There was no requirement for an independent review. So Shipman was simultaneously the killer, the attending physician, and the person certifying the death as natural. He was the beginning and the end of the process.
That is a catastrophic gap in oversight.
a catastrophic gap that the Shipman inquiry later addressed with sweeping reforms to how death certificates are handled in the UK. But we'll get to that. The victims, I want to spend time on them. They were overwhelmingly elderly women. Most were in their 70s, 80s, some in their 90s. They had names and lives and families.
Tell me about some of them.
Joan Melia was 73. She was found dead in her home in 1998. Her daughter raised concerns because her mother had seemed perfectly well shortly before Shipman's visit. Lizzie Adams was 77. Her family specifically requested a postmortem because something felt wrong. The postmortem found nothing suspicious because the pathologist was not looking for morphine. Winifred Meller was 73, a former local counselor. Marie Quinn was 67. Irene Turner was 67. Laura Wagstaff was 81.
These were not people at death's door necessarily.
Many of them were not. Some were ill, yes. Shipman deliberately targeted patients who were in some degree of poor health so that a death would seem less suspicious. But many of them had years ahead of them. They were killed by a man they trusted in the comfort of their own homes.
Did any families suspect at the time?
Several, multiple families raised concerns over the years. They were not taken seriously, and this is one of the most painful aspects of the case, the number of times someone said something is wrong and was not heard. We will come back to that. If there is a hero in this story, and there is, her name is Dr. Linda Reynolds.
Who is she?
A GP at a neighboring practice in Hyde. In 1998, she noticed something that nobody else had formally acted on. Her practice was receiving an unusual number of referrals for cremation paperwork from Shipman's patients. In the UK, a second doctor has to countersign a cremation certificate. It's one of the few checks in the system. And Dr. Reynolds noticed she was signing off on a lot of Shipman's dead patients. Too many.
She did the maths.
She did the maths. She raised concerns with the coroner, and the coroner passed them to the police, and the police investigated, briefly, and concluded there was nothing suspicious. They spoke to Shipman, who was charming and confident and had explanations for everything. The investigation was dropped.
They investigated and cleared him?
In 1998, and then he killed again. Kathleen Grundy, 81 years old, a former mayor of Hyde. She died in June 1998, after the police had cleared Shipman. She was his last known victim.
What made Kathleen Grundy different?
Kathleen Grundy's will. Shipman forged it. He produced a crudely typed will in which Kathleen left her entire estate, around £386,000, to Shipman himself. It was so obviously wrong, out of character, badly typed, witnesses who didn't remember signing it, that Kathleen's daughter, Angela Woodruff, who was a solicitor, immediately knew something was wrong. She went to the police.
A solicitor's daughter? He chose the wrong victim to forge a will for.
He chose catastrophically wrong. Angela Woodruff pushed for a postmortem specifically testing for drugs. Kathleen's body was exhumed. Toxicology found a fatal dose of diamorphine administered within 3 hours of her death. Shipman had visited her that morning.
And then they looked back.
Police exhumed more bodies. The pattern became undeniable. Shipman was arrested in September 1998.
He goes to trial in 1999?
October 1999. He's charged with 15 murders and 1 count of forging Kathleen Grundy's will. He pleads not guilty to everything. He maintains his innocence throughout.
His defense?
He had no credible defense. He claimed the morphine in his patients' bodies was the result of legitimate pain medication they had been taking, which toxicologists completely dismantled. The levels found were far beyond therapeutic doses. The jury convicted him on all 15 counts in January 2000. He was sentenced to life imprisonment with a recommendation he never be released.
And then the inquiry.
The Shipman inquiry, chaired by Dame Janet Smith,
It ran for 3 years and examined not just Shipman's crimes, but the systemic failures that allowed him to kill for so long undetected. The final report concluded he had probably killed 250 people, 250, over 23 years, making him almost certainly the most prolific serial killer in modern world history.
250.
The inquiry was damning about the systems around him. The lack of independent death certification, the failure to act on concerns raised by families, the fact that the 1998 police investigation cleared him, the culture in medicine at that time that essentially said, doctors don't do this, therefore this doctor didn't do this.
The assumption of professional innocence.
The assumption that a respected GP could not be a killer, which Shipman exploited for over 2 decades.
What changed after?
Significant reforms. Death certification in England and Wales was overhauled. A system of medical examiners was introduced to independently review all deaths not investigated by the coroner. Controlled drug prescribing was tightened dramatically. The systems that Shipman exploited were closed one by one. His case directly made British medicine safer.
Too late for 250 people.
Too late for 250 people.
He died in prison.
January 13, 2004, the day before his 58th birthday. He hanged himself in his cell at Wakefield Prison. He left no note. He gave no explanation. He had never confessed, never expressed remorse, never given any account of why he did what he did.
250 victims and no explanation.
None. And this is the part of the case that I find most maddening, because the families of his victims deserved answers. They deserved to understand why their mother, their grandmother, their friend was killed by a man who was supposed to be caring for her, and Shipman took that with him.
What do the experts think the motive was?
There are several theories. The most widely discussed is a God complex, that he felt a profound sense of power in controlling life and death. Some link it back to watching his mother die and the morphine injections the doctor gave her, that he was recreating that moment of control, of administering the final dose. Others have suggested he genuinely believed he was helping his patients, ending their suffering before it became too great.
Euthanasia as a motive?
Some have argued it. But the victims included people who were not terminally ill, people who had years ahead of them, so that theory has significant holes. The honest answer is, we don't know, and we will never know.
And his family?
His wife, Primrose, stood by him throughout the trial and maintained his innocence publicly. They had 4 children. The family have largely stayed out of public life since his death. Whatever they know or believe, they have kept private.
We've covered a lot of serial killers on this show now. Gacy, Dean Corll, Warnos, Freegard. What makes Shipman different?
The trust. Every serial killer exploits something. Gacy exploited his community standing, Freegard exploited fear, but Shipman exploited the most fundamental trust that exists in a civilized society, the trust between a patient and their doctor. You are vulnerable when you see a doctor. You have to be. That vulnerability is the basis of the entire relationship.
And he used it as a weapon.
For 23 years. And the thing that keeps me up about this case isn't Shipman himself. It's the question of how many times someone noticed something wrong and the system didn't respond. Dr. Linda Reynolds noticed, families noticed, and the machine just kept going.
The machine assumed a doctor couldn't be doing this.
And that assumption cost 250 lives, maybe more. The Shipman inquiry found cases going back to 1971 that might be attributable to him, which means he may have been killing for almost 30 years. We simply don't know where it started.
That is one of the most chilling sentences in true crime.
We don't know where it started. Yeah, it really is.
Harold Shipman. At least 218 confirmed victims, likely 250 or more. 23 years. Never explained, never apologized.
Some of his victims: Eva Lyons, Marie West, Harold Bramwell, Ada Hilton, Irene Turner, Lizzie Adams, Jean Lilly, Ivy Lomas, Muriel Ward, Nora Nuttall, Pamela Hillier, Maureen Ward, Winifred Meller, Joan Melia, Kathleen Grundy, and hundreds more whose names deserve to be spoken.
We say their names.
We say their names. And we say the name of Dr. Linda Reynolds, who noticed, who raised the alarm, who was not listened to in time, but who ultimately was right.
The reforms that came out of the Shipman inquiry have almost certainly saved lives. Death certification in the UK is fundamentally different because of this case. That doesn't bring anyone back, but it matters.
It matters. Thank you for being here for episode 21. This one was heavy, and we appreciate you staying with us.
Subscribe, leave a review, keep the case suggestions coming. I'm Dylan.
I'm Cindy, and go be nice to your GP.
But also maybe check their patient mortality statistics.
Dylan.
Too soon?
Little bit. Goodbye, everyone.